All right, so what we're going to talk about today are the biomes of the world, okay? And the biomes of the world are kind of ecological regions that are present on Earth, okay? Their locations are determined by the factors that affect climate, okay, and climate themselves. So, okay, like for example, you don't see tropical rainforests in Canada. Okay? We have some temperate rainforests on the west coast, but we have no tropical rainforests because up here, the factors that affect climate are not going to be correct for producing a forest of that nature. It's cold, it's dry, okay, things like that. That's the exact opposite of what a tropical rainforest would be. Everyone kind of follow me on that? Okay, so what you're going to be expected to do with the information in this lesson is twofold. First, if I give you a multiple choice question with a description and a picture, you would be able to tell me what biome I'm describing. Right? So basically just be able to match it up. Okay. The second thing is in a written response question, I will give you a climatogram. And you will have to tell me what biome best fits with that climatogram. Okay, everyone follow me on that. Right? Now, the climatogram part is probably the more important part because the multiple choice question on identifying biomes, that's pretty easy. I mean, you look at the picture, you read the description, you can't really go too wrong. But with the biome part, with the climatograms, you're looking at like a 5-mark question. So you need to be able to say, okay, this climatogram says that the climate in this location is as follows, and you describe to me first what the climatogram is telling you. Okay, so you interpret it. Then you explain why the biome you think it is fits with that. All right, so for example, if I had a climatogram that had, temperature that was 30 degrees Celsius all year long and virtually no precipitation, I would say that that probably belongs with what? With a desert, yeah. Okay, so Arizona would be a location, desert would be the biome. All right, so you'd have to then say, all right, so this climatogram says that temperature rarely changes, although in Arizona it does. They actually have summer and winter. Okay, so something that was hot all year round might be more like Dubai or like Cairo or something like that. Okay, and then really dry. Okay, the temperature or the precipitation lines are all very low. There's no like definite wet season, so this would be a very arid area. Deserts tend to be very arid, very hot in some cases. So I think these two biomes go together very well. So you'd have to have an explanation of the biome, an explanation of your interpretation of the climatogram, and put them together. Everyone follow me there? So those are the two things you'll have to do with the information from this lesson. All right, so here's a map of the world showing us where these ecological regions we call biomes are located. All right, so we'll start out with the tropical rainforest, which is going to be this kind of light green color. Right? Now, we can see here that obviously there's a lot of tropical rainforest in South America. Which tropical rainforest? Yeah, this is the Amazon rainforest. Okay, so it's huge, okay, although it's getting smaller and smaller all the time. But that's generally where we would find most tropical rainforests. There's some in Africa, the Horn of Africa, okay, things like that, a little bit like Madagascar, places like that. And then Southeast Asia, so this would be like Vietnam, southern China, the Philippines, okay, Papua New Guinea, and all those kinds of places in here, okay, tropical rainforests in that kind of a place. Where do you not see any of them? Yeah, well, actually, you don't see any really beyond the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, really 23.5 degrees north or south of the equator, which just happens to be also the tilt of the Earth, okay, there doesn't really seem to be much tropical rainforest beyond that. Exactly, that's where the amount of light, okay, between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, the amount of light received doesn't significantly change. Right, so you would not have anyone using daylight savings time between those two latitudes. Okay, the amount of sunlight that they receive is very steady and very constant all year long, and that's going to be necessary, or one of the necessary factors for a tropical rainforest. Obviously, other important factors are precipitation. Okay? Certainly here, okay, in northern Africa, there's a lot. It's very hot there, but it's very dry. Okay, you're not going to get a tropical rainforest here. This is the Sahara Desert. Right, and then this is the Middle East over here. It's all rocks and dirt, and okay, it's just blasted, okay, for desert-like. All right, next one we're going to look at savanna. Okay, so savanna would be, I mean, most of Africa is savanna. It's a tropical grassland. Okay? It's where you know lions and tigers, but not bears, wildebeests, okay, things like that, right? Would all be in that area. Okay, so much of Africa. There's some in South America, but more of this is due to deforestation than it is to it being kind of a natural occurrence. Okay, and there's some in Australia, okay, on kind of the northern coast of Australia there. Okay, but it's not a big one outside of Africa. So you know your elephants and things like that, they live in the savanna. Okay, desert, okay, is the kind of darker yellow color here. So we can see, yeah, there's a lot of desert through northern Africa. There's desert in the outback of Australia. Okay, the middle part of the continent is all desert. Okay, there's desert obviously in like Nevada and Utah, Southern California, Western Mexico, Baja. Okay, all of those kind of places are desert. Okay, then there's some desert here in Asia as well. Okay, there's some desert behind the Caspian Sea. And what's this white line here? Yeah, it's over here too. Well, what's right here in Canada? Mountains. Okay, so what mountain range is this? That's the Himalayas. So there's a desert behind the Himalayas. What did we call that? It's a rain shadow. Okay, you can actually see it kind of looks like a shadow, right? You got tropical rainforest on one side of the Himalayas, and you got a desert on the other, right? This is the Gobi Desert. Okay? It is a high altitude cold desert, and it is caused by the rain shadow effect of the Himalayas. Okay? I mean, you think we're in a rain shadow behind the Rockies. The Himalayas are 3 times higher. Okay? That creates a pretty massive rain shadow. All right, the blue here, okay? This is extreme deserts, all right? So this kind of desert could be tropical desert, so it's hot all year, or it could be cold desert, like Arizona would be a cold desert because it has seasons. But extreme desert is rocks and ice, and that's why the tops of all the major mountain ranges are colored in that color, okay? That's where there are glaciers. Okay? And just there's no soil, there's no plants, there's basically nothing to see in the extreme desert biome, okay, and life-wise, because there's just nothing there to make it be successful. Now, there is one continent that's missing that would be all that color, Antarctica. Okay? It's not on the map here, but it would definitely be extreme desert. In fact, Antarctica is the driest continent. Okay? Even though it's covered in a sheet of ice that's over 1 kilometer thick in most places, okay, it is still the driest continent because there's virtually no liquid water on it. Okay, it gets very little precipitation, right? Things like that. Okay, next one, chaparral. Okay, we also sometimes call this the Mediterranean climate. I can't imagine why, because that's where most of it is, okay? So we're looking at, like places like Italy and stuff like that, Greece, okay? They're in chaparral. They're the Mediterranean types of climate. There's little bits and pieces of that biome in other places of the world. So here in like, Southern California, okay, that it's very much like Italy and Greece, okay? That's why there's so many like wineries and things like vineyards and things like that in Southern California, just like there is in the Mediterranean, okay? A little bit in Australia, a little bit here in South Africa, okay, but it's pretty much isolated to that one spot. Okay, temperate grasslands we also call prairie. It's the biome that we live in, right? So you can see that most of the western provinces, obviously not BC, but most of the western provinces, so Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba would fall into that. Okay, much of the central United States, Montana, Wyoming, okay, places like that would also be in there. Okay, some in Mexico as well. There's some grassland there. Okay, there's some prairie. Okay, even in the tropical areas. Okay, there's some prairie in Australia before we get to the desert, and there's lots of prairie through Central Asia. So that would be like Mongolia and places like that. Okay, they're very much like here at home. It would seem quite familiar if we were there. Okay, temperate deciduous forest. A deciduous forest does what? What happens to a deciduous forest every year? Yeah, the leaves fall off. Okay, deciduous trees are ones that lose their leaves. All right, so obviously much of the eastern United States and southeastern Canada, okay, so like Ontario, Quebec, and things like that, okay, would definitely be in there. That's where we'd have maple trees and hazel and beech and hickory and all that kind of stuff. Okay, all those deciduous trees, okay, would definitely be in here. Most of Europe, okay, is going to be temperate deciduous forest, or at least was, okay, before the Industrial Revolution, and we cut lots of things down, okay, but certainly much of Europe would be that. But that is a very northern hemisphere climate. Okay? You see virtually no deciduous forest below the Tropic of Cancer, okay, below 23.5. It is a very, again, and that's what temperate means. Temperate means not tropical, but also not extreme. Okay, so temperate is in the middle. Okay, the taiga. Okay, if you've ever been to Fort McMurray, or you've been into the mountains here, like Kananaskis and Banff and things like that, then you've been in the taiga. Okay, the taiga is a very uniform type of biome. There's not a lot of diversity. It's like a bunch of spruce trees and pine trees, and that's really about it. Okay, so if you've been up to Fort McMurray, you know kind of what that looks like. Okay, so much of Canada is taiga. Okay, it's a very rugged biome. Okay, very rugged. It's hard to get through, and but it's also the biome that's most under attack by resource development. Same in Russia. Okay, most of Russia is taiga. Okay, and there's a lot of natural resources available in that biome, so it's being more and more consumed, okay, by us. And then there's tundra. Tundra is an Arctic prairie. Okay, so we've got savanna, which is a tropical prairie. We've got temperate grassland, which is just a regular prairie. And then we have tundra, which is an Arctic prairie. Okay, the reason we have tundra further north than taiga is because the taiga has bigger trees. And bigger trees require slightly warmer temperatures, more rainfall, and deeper soil. The tundra is so far north that most of the time the soil doesn't thaw more than a couple of centimeters deep, because it's so cold, right? The growing season is extremely short, right? But it's okay that it's extremely short, because during it, how much sunlight does this biome receive? Lots, okay? So during like June and July, which is essentially the growing season, it's getting 24 hours of sunshine, right? Because it's in the north and the sun never sets, okay, during the summertime. So you see it, that kind of effect. So everything there has to grow really quickly and then go dormant again, because they're going to have winter for 10 months, okay? And it's going to be pitch black for 3 of those. All right, is that sort of making sense? Kind of getting an idea or feel for where they are? Okay, so this will be something you'd want to think about when you're looking at a climatogram and saying, okay, this climatogram looks like it's probably a tropical area. If that's the case, that eliminates anything above the Tropic of Cancer or the Tropic of Capricorn. It can't be any of those. Okay, so those are the kind of things you want to think about when you're analyzing that. Okay, so first biome, tropical rainforest. Anyone ever been to a place where there's a tropical rainforest? Okay, is it anything like forests here? No. Okay, like it is oppressive to be in a tropical rainforest. Okay, when you go into the forest here in Canada, you can see still. Yeah, there's trees, but they're pretty widely spaced. Okay, most of the time, it's not hard to get through. Okay, you know, and things like that. In the tropical rainforest, it just closes in on you. Okay, it is so thick and so dense and diverse. Right, it would be, you know, less likely to find like 5 of the same plant growing in an area 10 meters wide. Right? Whereas in Canada, in an area 10 meters wide, you would find basically like 3 kinds of plants, and that would be it. Okay? In the tropical rainforest, there could be 50 different kinds of plants in that same space. It's very, very diverse. It's also stratified, which means there's layers to it. Okay? The very top layer of the tropical rainforest is what we call the canopy. Okay, that's where the tallest, most mature trees are. Okay, and then there's like sub-canopy layers, and then there's understory layers. Okay, and then there's like undergrowth underneath that. Okay, so there could be like 5 or 6 different layers to this forest, and there would be some organisms that would only live in one layer. Okay, they won't migrate from one layer to the next. All right, so you can see here, like I say, the trees are very tall. They're also very dense. Okay, they're very, very close together. All right, so the general characteristics of the tropical rainforest is that they cover about 13% of the Earth's land surface, although unfortunately that number is decreasing all the time. Okay, these are complex and variable, and they grow in areas with no distinct seasonality. So there's no winter, there's no summer. They may have a rainy season and a dry season. Okay, now their dry season would cause torrential flooding here, but it's less precipitation than their wet season. Right. So what a tropical rainforest looks like, I mean, this is a rugged mountain area. If I looked at a rugged mountain area in Canada, would the mountain be covered with growth like this one is? No, because on a steep face like that, the water just runs off. Okay, and we don't get rain nearly as frequently here, so stuff really can't get a foothold on a steep slope. But in the tropical rainforest, it rains every single day, sometimes a lot. And so that means that essentially a plant can grow anywhere, right? There's always going to be moisture enough for a plant to grow. And so the mountains end up looking like a chia pet, okay, instead of, bald, okay, like ours do on the tops. Okay, and that's just because there's so much precipitation. And if you look at the different colors of all the plants, okay, like even in this picture here, you can see it too. There's all different colors to the different trees. Okay, you go into a forest in Canada, and unless it's fall in central Canada, pretty much all the trees are the same color. Okay, there's not a lot of diversity, whereas here there really is. Okay, climatogram for a tropical rainforest. Because it's going to be near the equator, the temperature line is going to be pretty flat. There's no winter and summer, okay? So it's going to be pretty flat. The precipitation is going to be high, right? It may have dips, like this would be the rainy season, January, February, March, okay? April, May, June, July, and maybe even August would be more of the dry season, okay? And then there'd be kind of an intermediate time in between, but it's going to be very, very high. We're looking at here 200 millimeters of rain per month during the rainy season. Okay, that's that much. Okay, everywhere, right? 200 millimeters of rain per month, right? To give you an idea, in 2013, when we had all the flooding, okay, we got this much. Okay. So imagine, if you live in the tropical rainforest, you are in a perpetual state of flood, right? The Amazon River just goes out and goes into the trees. A lot of the trees have to grow essentially using nutrients from the floodwaters. They don't really get nutrients from the soil. The soil's just there to anchor them in place. All right, getting a feel for what that one looks like? All right, soils in the tropical rainforest, this is the weird part because it's very counterintuitive. You've got all this luxuriant, lush vegetation, and the soil's crap. Okay? The soils are incredibly poor in terms of their nutrient content and their ability to hold water. Right? And the reason for that is it's always flooded. It's always getting washed away. Okay? And when there's water sitting on top, what it does is it leaches out all the minerals that are in the soil. Because if you got water on top of the soil becomes saturated. And then by diffusion, any minerals and nutrients that are in the soil will want to move from the soil where they're in high concentration into the floodwater where they're in lower concentration. And so it's why it's called leaching. It sucks the nutrients out of the soil. And then those floodwaters run away. Okay? And they take all the nutrients with them. So the plants, like I was saying before, typically get their nutrients out of the floodwater, not out of the soil. The soil is incredibly poor. Okay? And so it generally tends to look like this. It kind of has a reddish color, and it's mostly clay because the stuff that's larger particles gets washed away. The clay cements itself together and doesn't wash as much. And so you typically get very clay-like soils in that area. It's also a big problem for people in the area if they want to undertake some agricultural pursuits. That is, they want to farm and grow their own food. Okay? They'll usually engage in what we call slash and burn agriculture. So they'll slash down the rainforest, burn it, and then till the soil and grow plants there. The problem is, when they burn the trees, most of the nutrients go up in smoke. There's very few nutrients in the soil, so after a season or maybe two, they can't get anything to even germinate in the soil. The soil is just so depleted that nothing will grow in it. Okay? In addition to the fact that they have to worry about, is this area going to flood? Okay, so if maybe they're trying to grow rice, that would be okay, but any other types of crops, it's very difficult to keep them going. All right, decomposition is very rapid. Okay, so if a tree falls in a rainforest, it's going to decompose and be gone in a matter of, let's say, weeks to months. Tree falls in the forest here, how long does it take? Years, decades even sometimes for it to completely decompose because it gets cold. So 6 months of the year, the decomposers are all dormant. Okay, it's drier. and it's so there's not going to be as much mold and things like that that's going to grow on dead stuff. Okay, so it takes way longer for things to decompose here than it does in the tropical rainforest. In the tropical rainforest, things decompose very rapidly. In fact, sometimes you'll even see plants growing out of plants that are dead. Okay, like if a tree falls, there'll be other plants growing out of that tree before it's even fully decomposed. Okay. All right, so the soils in the tropical rainforest look like this. There's very little A horizon, like virtually no topsoil. Okay, lots of B horizon, lots of clay, okay? And then very far down below that would be the parent material, the C horizon and the rock. Right, so weird thing, right? All this luxuriant vegetation, all these trees, all these plants, and almost no topsoil for them to grow in. Okay, for the vegetation, okay, tropical rainforests, like we said, are very diverse, okay, and there's often up to 8 different layers of vegetation from the ground to the tops of the tallest trees, okay. This is what the tropical rainforest, at least where I was, looked like at ground level, okay. I went just for like a little hike when I was in Hawaii, which was a big mistake, because going for a hike through the tropical rainforest is not like going through a hike in the forest in Kananaskis. Okay, the forest literally closed in behind me, and I could not tell which way was which. Okay, here in Canada, you can always tell which way is which. Okay, there's always signs that you can look for. Most of the time, you can see the sun, so you know where the sun is. Okay, moss only tends to grow on the north side of trees here, so at least you have some idea which way is north. Okay, things like that. In the tropical rainforest, it closes in behind you and you have no references. You can't see the sun because it's so thick, and there's mosses growing everywhere. You can't use that as a way to tell which way you're going. Okay, it's very easy to get lost. Okay, and I basically just walked until I lucked out and happened to come out where there was a road cut. Okay, and I was able to just walk on the road until I got back to where I was. Okay, and yeah, it's just, it comes in behind you. So unless you have a machete, which in retrospect would have been a good idea, and you can leave a path of destruction to follow back, okay, it's very, very easy to get turned around because it's so thick. Okay, like you never see a forest that looks like this at ground level here in Canada. Okay, it's just so thick. And there's lots of what? What is there lots of in the tropical rainforest? There's not lots of here. Bugs. If you don't like bugs, do not go to the tropical rainforest. There's lots of bugs, big ones, small ones, hairy ones, ugly ones, they're everywhere. Okay, yeah, so if you don't like bugs, don't go there. Okay, you have to sleep in a bed with a big net over it. Okay, yeah. Okay, so in terms of the animals, fauna is the animals. Okay, there's flora, that's the vegetation, then there's fauna, that's the animals. Okay, we don't have a lot of large mammals in the tropical rainforest. Why not? Well, they can't fit, and because you can't be at ground level most of the time because it's flooded. Yeah, it's flooded all the time. So most of the animals that are in the tropical rainforest are arboreal, which means they live in the trees. Okay, so you got like the red panda here. Okay, you got the tree sloth or the three-toed sloth. Okay, they're cute till you look them in the eye. They got really weird eyes. They're like shifty looking. Yeah. Oh yeah, the red panda is pretty cute. Okay, and then like I said, lots and lots of different kinds of bugs, like this dung beetle. Okay, yeah. What's that? Yes. Also scary looking. Okay. There you got like praying mantis. You're gonna have those in the tropical rainforest, and you could have like walking sticks. Has anyone seen a walking stick? Not the kind you actually use, but the bug. Okay. They're pretty cool looking. Like if you get them on your hand, they act just like a branch. Okay. Like if you have them and they're holding onto your hand and fingers and you blow on them, they sway just like a leaf or a branch would. Okay, and it's not because you've actually blown on them and made them do that. They'll actually do it as a way to mimic and camouflage themselves. Okay, unless you know, if they're in a terrarium and you don't know what you're looking for, you'll never see them. Okay, they hide really well. They look like a stick. Okay, it's crazy. Yeah, they'll be reptiles. The snakes would have to be aquatic snakes. They'd like pythons, something like that can live in the water. Okay, or anacondas that could live in the water, things like that. But you wouldn't find like a rattlesnake. A rattlesnake can't live there, right? Yeah, lots of spiders for sure. Well, anacondas can get really big. Like, yeah, like I think they can be up to like 50 feet long. Yeah, and like huge around, right? Okay, listen in here, guys. Listen up, please. Okay, so big thing about animals in the tropical rainforest, and this is also true for plants, okay, is that there are a lot of what we call endemic species. That means they only live in that one place. Okay, so if someone comes along and they, cut down the forest in that area, they could unknowingly cause the extinction of a species because that species only lives in that one spot, plants and animals. Okay, so there's a lot of kind of delicate structure, okay, to the tropical rainforest in that regard. All right, so like I say, you're not going to find gophers, you're not going to find things that live underground because, yeah, well, anything that lives underground. You don't want to live underground in the rainforest, or you have to be aquatic. Okay, if you dig a burrow, it's going to be flooded all the time. So everything is arboreal in order to stay away from the water. Okay, and like we said, for chemical cycling, and this is what I was talking about, here's a tree that's fallen down here in the foreground, and you can see there's already other plants growing right out of it. Okay, the decomposition is really, really rapid. Okay, and so things happen very, very quickly. Very dense, very lush. Okay, and the chemical cycling happens fast because there's lots of bacteria, there's lots of bugs, there's lots of fungus. Okay, all of that kind of stuff that contributes to very quickly cycling nutrients through. All right, we'll leave it there, and we'll pick up with Savanna tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get through the rest of it.